Let's talk about the new version of Python. This is Python 3.10. In the recent past, we got a couple of versions of Python. In fact, you can see the list here. So starting from way back in 1991, we have been getting versions of Python every now and then. We got Python 2.0, 3.0, 3.6, 7, and so on. But in all these versions, the changes were pretty minor. We had one or two important features. But in 3.10, we got something substantial. Especially one feature really stands out. So this is a special session to discuss how to use those new features of Python 3.10. So here we go. And this is the prerequisite. So if you want to try what we discuss in this special session, if you want to try the examples which I demonstrate, so download Python 3.10 from python.org, and you know from where you get it. And then we are talking about the JetBrains PyCharm. The latest version of PyCharm is to be downloaded because otherwise it doesn't support the new features and you keep getting syntax errors. So download 2021.2.3 or whatever is the latest so that it supports the new features of Python 3.10. So those are the prerequisites. And in case if you have old version of Python, you don't have to remove it. You can just install the new version in a different folder and configure your project in PyCharm to use the new interpreter. In that way, you don't have to remove the old version. Anyway, there is no need to remove the old version and then reinstall it always, but there's nothing wrong if you do that. You can happily get rid of your Python 3.9 and then replace that with the 3.10. Now, here are the new features. Better error messages. Now, they have worked on error messages and trying to make them more meaningful, because in the past, some of the error messages were a little cryptic. Now, they made those error messages more meaningful, more understandable. Then structural pattern matching is the biggest of all the features. So we spend a lot of time understanding what it is. And simply put, it is similar to switch, but that's an understatement because it can do a lot more than what switch can do in other languages. And then we got a few new features like the parameterized context managers, union operator, and some enhancement to JIP. And you all know, because you know Python, there is a function called JIP. Now, the JIP function is having some enhancement. So let's see what they are. And if you want to get more details, go to this. This is what's new in Python 3.10. And these are the details. And these are the release highlights. You can see what are the highlights. So structural pattern matching and optional length check for JIP and precise line numbers for debugging. And then a few other things here. Of course, parameterized context manager. This is all that you have. Now, as I told you, the most important one is structural pattern matching. This is the most important of all. So let's get started. So here is my new project in PyCharm. And this is PyCharm where I created a project with the name Py 310. And this is where I have a couple of demos. I'm going to show how these demos work. And we start with better error messages. Now, the error messages got better. That means if you remove this code here, you know it's an error, and go run it, and you're going to see more detailed error message. So it is saying unterminated string literal. And you try the same in previous versions of Python, you get not a message of this kind, something a little less understandable than this. So they really worked hard to make error messages more understandable. And then here also, if you miss something like a comma somewhere, let's miss this, and then go ahead and then run this. And it's going to very clearly tell you, perhaps you forgot a comma. So it's saying, maybe you forgot the comma. So this is where you're getting the error message indicating exactly what you missed. These are just a few examples. And what if you use single equal to instead of double equal to? Again, it's a case where it understands what might be your intention. So it's saying maybe you meant this or this and instead of this. That's what it is saying. It's saying maybe you are planning to use this, but you used this. And this is where it is making things more easier for developers to quickly identify the error and fix it. Okay, so this is one area of improvement, and you experience it every day because we do make mistakes. And when we get the errors, we can easily understand the reasons because the error messages got better. Okay, that's about the first one. Now, then comes something called our pattern matching. Okay, and here we are. So, the first one is simple literal matching. So structural pattern matching is what we call it, and match is the statement. So this is the match statement, and we are giving match statement here. Okay, and this is the case statement. So here are the case statements. So it might resemble something like a switch in other languages, like you say switch, an expression, and then a set of cases. But here it's going to be different. Now here is the old way of simulating case or switch. So I want to decide a discount rate based on the product code. So I'm giving code discount, code discount. This is what I'm giving. And now to find out what is the discount rate based on the product code, I have to do something like this. So I say get the value from this dictionary for this code. And I'm using get instead of directly using square brackets because if the code is not 1, 2, or 3, then it is going to throw error. But get doesn't do that. So I'm saying if you have this code in the dictionary as a key, you return the corresponding value. And if not, for example, if code is 5, it should return the default value 5. So this is like the switch statement or case statement you find in other languages. This is the simulation we had to do till now, till 3.10. But in 3.10, we don't have to do this. Now, this is obviously a little cryptic and beginners find it difficult to understand. Now, they replaced all this with something very clean like this. So all that you need to do is simply say match, this is the keyword, code, this is the variable. And we want to match this code with 1. And when it is 1, we want to take this action. In fact, you can have any number of statements. There is no limit and no need to worry about anything like break, because those who know other programming languages, you know, you have to give break to come out of switch. Otherwise, it's going to be a blunder. Now we can get rid of all those issues. It's a simple match statement where you match this with 1 and then 2, 3, and this is the wild card. If it is not matching 1, 2, and 3, then it will automatically go to the last one. This is called simple literal, matching to literal. Now here we are. So we talk about simple literal, and we have a couple of examples here. So let's talk about the simple literal here. Now this is where I want to compare the language with Java and then Python and then C Sharp. So this is where we are using match statement. You can have strings, numbers, whatever you like. So if it is not Java, Python, or C Sharp, then it has to come to this. Now this is where I'm starting with Java. So when I run it, I'm going to print 17. Then one more important thing here is another possibility rather, you can match this expression with the values in a class. So this is a class and this is a variable, but it should be inside the class. It cannot be a normal variable. It cannot be a regular local or global variable. It has to be a member of the class. So I created a class called languages. I'm creating two static variables. And now I'm saying if the lang is equal to languages.web, that means if it is Java, I do this. And if it is Python, because ML is standing for Python, you can see here, this is Python. So if lang is Python, I do this. And if lang is anything other than these two, then I display this. So you can compare either with literals or you can compare with some variables, but those variables must be members of class, not just normal variables. So if you go and run it, it's going to give you the result like this. So it is giving 17 because I'm saying it is Java. So this is where it found a match. And if you go down and here, the same lang is now compared with this, and this is Java, so it's a match and we get it. And by any chance, if you change it to Python and run the same program, you're going to get 3.10 and machine learning. So it is a new feature, a damn new feature, and it is going to solve the problems related to switch, because many Python students would ask me, do we have any switch, or if not, what is the alternative? Well, the alternative is to use dictionary to simulate it, or there are many techniques for that matter, but this is now clean and simple way to implement case or switch statement. Well, this is tip of the iceberg. This is not all. You may know in some languages all that you have is this, but here we have a lot more. Now the next thing is using multiple literals. You are allowed to use multiple literals. So I want to compare this month number with the multiple cases. So if it is 2, I say number of days 28. But if it is not 2, I want to compare with 4, 6, 9, 11. This is cool, right? So we can compare with the multiple values separated by pipe symbol. So you're saying if it is 4 or 6 or 9 or 11, then you take this action. And for the rest of the cases, you take this action. That's pretty good. So this is about multiple literals here. This is one variant. Apart from that, if you go down, this is another variant. So this is a tuple with two values, and then we match that with these tuples. And the interesting part of this is you can use underscore in one of the cases. That means it's a wildcard. So it is saying if the point is containing 0 and 0. So if both those values are matching these two, take this action. But if it is having 0, because this is considered to be row, this is considered to be column. And if it is a 0th row, but we don't care for the column, if the column is anything, of course, if it is 0, we take this action already. But if it is not 0, it can be anything. I don't care. I simply say it's first row. So that is a very interesting possibility. And then we go down and we say we are only particular about the column. Row can be anything. So if the row is anything but column is 0, we say first column. And finally, we don't care for both, then we say it is somewhere in the middle. It's not first row or not first column, then we say simply middle. So you can have a tuple, or you can also use two simple variables. It's possible to use two simple variables like this. You can say row and column, two simple variables, and those two are compared with these two. Even that is possible. I can write the same program in this way. So this is where you're matching this tuple with these two values, and using underscore we can say we are not particular about that value, we are only focusing on the other one. So if you run this program, it's going to tell you what is what. First, as the month is 5, it is telling you it is 31. And then if you go down, and I'm saying 0, 10. So you should be getting a message saying first row. There you are, it's first row. And then if you go down and then set both of them to zeros, then it says first row, first column. So this is a nice feature. It's not just you can compare with only one value. It's not that you can compare one value with one set of values. You can have multiple expressions either in the form of a tuple or even independently like this. You have a lot of flexibility. You can try different things. So this is how they have improved this match, and well, they've been working on this for quite some time. Only in 3.10 it became the official feature of the language. Well, what else can we do? We can also use it with the types. Look at this. This is called type pattern. So we can compare the value with the different types of data types. So if this A is integer, now one more thing, it's not just comparing whether it is integer. In many cases, we can capture the value into a variable. So I'm going to copy this value of A into V, and I'm printing V. Similarly, I'm converting this value to string, and then I put it into this. If it is not integer, I check whether it is a string. So here I say integer and then V. And here I say it's a string. Okay. And then go ahead and run. What do you get? Integer. Because this is an integer. But if I say 20.10 and run it, it's going to give you some other type. Because it's not integer, it is not a string, it is instead some other data type. So like this, I can check the type of the data, and then I can also capture the value into a variable. I can take that into a variable and do whatever I want with the variable here. So this is the way we can check the type of the value and take some action. Great. Now this is another possibility. Then we are talking about something called dictionary. This is where it gets really interesting. And we are talking about something like this. Let's say we have dictionaries. Sometimes the name of the person is stored using name, which is a simple key, but sometimes the name is stored using first name. Especially when you're taking data from external sources, You don't know in which format the data comes. Might be in some cases you get in one format, in some cases in a different format. I mean a different structure. So assume you have name and then first name like these two different possibilities. How can we take the name in both these cases? Now, let's start with this. I take one of them for now, okay? So if D is containing a key called name, this is how it is. If D contains a key called name, then take the value from the key, put it into this. So we are copying the value into this variable. So it's not just checking, it's also capturing the value, copying that into this variable. And we don't do anything. For now, I don't have any action, so I'm simply saying pass. Number two, we are taking another scenario because sometimes the dictionary is not having name, it is instead having first name. So even then it works. So when it is not the case, it will go and check this. If this is the case, then we copy the name into this variable. And eventually you are going to get the value into this. In case if it is none of them, if it is neither name nor first name, then we don't know what to do because we are only familiar with the two possibilities. But in real world, if you have a 3 or 4 or 5 different possibilities, you can have 5 cases to handle all those different possibilities. So this is a very powerful feature. So it takes a little time to sink in. So this is the dictionary. We compare whether there is a key called name. If so, its value is copied into this. And if the key is not name, we check whether it is first name. If so, we put into this. Like this, we can handle different structures with the help of the match statement. Now go ahead and run. In this case, it is getting scored because this is the dictionary now. Just go and comment out this. Still, we are able to get the name, though the structure is different. And run it, and you get it. Well, in the past, if you had to do something like this, you had to use multiple if statements. You should check whether there is anything called name in the dictionary. And if so, you say take the value. Else, you check whether it is first name, and then you would take this. See, as the languages evolve, they make our life easy. They are going to provide you features which make your programs more readable, more efficient, and more faster. So it is just trying to make things more readable and more compact. Instead of writing several if statements, you can go with this. So this is about how to deal with pattern matching in the context of dictionary. Now, we can also use list. You can use a lot of other data types for the same purpose. Now, the next one is something called nested dictionary. This is a little bigger. Look at that. So this time D1 contains name, D2 contains first name, D3 contains name with again first name and last name. And my intention is to take the first name, and it is provided in 3 different ways in 3 dictionaries. Because when the data is coming from external sources like different websites and so on, you might have the same data coming in different formats, in different structures. So this is how we can handle it. So let's go to a match and say, match this D with these different cases. But what is this D? This is coming from one of these dictionaries. So we are talking about these 3 dictionaries plus the 4th one, which is empty dictionary. There is nothing in this. So we are talking about 4 dictionaries. We take one by one. And in the first dictionary, we want to know whether the name is found. And inside the name, do you have first name? No, this is not the case with the first dictionary. So it will not execute this. It will go to this. Is it the match? No, this is the match. So name is there, but inside the name, we don't have first name. So we just go for third one and pick up the name here. So you get Srikant here. In the second case, this is your first name scenario. This case will be executed. In the third one, it says, yes, I found name. And I also have a nested dictionary called first name here, nested dictionary key called first name, and take the value here. So like this, you can be very precise regarding the matching, and you're saying if the name is found in the dictionary with another dictionary with the key first name, take this. And please be careful, if you give this at the bottom, it doesn't work, because before it gets to this, it will get to this. And it will give you person, which is going to be the whole nested dictionary. This is not what we want. So the order is to be carefully arranged. Otherwise, you don't get expected results. So this is part of the loop. So every time at the end you print the name, go ahead, run it, you're going to get that. So I'm getting all 3 names. In all 3 cases, I'm able to get the value. And then finally, in the last case, it's not a match to any of them. So we go to this and say unknown. So like this, there are so many possibilities, and this is certainly the most powerful new feature. And I want you people to know what is this match and how we can use cases, how you can compare either values or data types or keys in dictionary and capture the value. And if you read more and more examples of it, you get to know more about how to use this match and case. And remember, it has just arrived and people start using it. They try to see what best they can do. So as we go forward, we will see more and more examples and more innovative ways of using this to solve problems. But as it is the single most important feature of 3.10. It is not simple switch. It is much bigger than simple switch, because these things you don't find in other languages. This is what you have here. Well, I'm not saying you can't do this if you don't have match, because we have written billions of lines of code with Python even without all these features. But certainly these features make our life a little easier. You can use these features and then build programs more readable and more easier to maintain. Okay, so that's about it. So a lot of options when it comes to your structural pattern matching. So matching to literals, then matching to literals and variables. And this is how you can copy that into variable. This is also a possibility. You can always capture the value into variable. So from this, I say match point, and then whatever you have that you want to copy into this. So it is saying if the row is 0, I want to capture the column into this. So I'm saying first row and this column. Similarly, if the column is 0, I want to capture the row into this, and I'm displaying the row there. And in next case, I want to capture both of them into 2 variables. So when you do this, you're going to get the values like this. This is what you get. So that is one possibility. And then we are talking about multiple literals. We discussed about that. One is using pipe symbol to separate them. You can use multiple literals separated by pipe. And the other one is using multiple values with multiple expressions there. Though it is just a tuple, it is like two different expressions being compared with the two values like this. This is one. And then this is about the pattern matching in the context of dictionary. So using the dictionary and using different keys and different structures, you are providing the data, but still I can extract the required data. So this is another feature that is interesting. Okay, now we have been moving to something called statically typed Python. Python is dynamically typed, we all know that. But at times people prefer Python to be a little statically typed. That means I want to have a function that should take only integer. And if it takes integer always, that's better. But in normal Python, there is no way you can enforce it. You can have any type of value passed. So in the context of making Python a little more statically typed, they introduced a new feature, and that new feature is called as union type. Look at this. Now, in the past, you could say like this, create a function, let us say cube, and I want this a variable, and you can just say return v into v into v. But the problem with this is, I don't know whether everything passed to this is a number. What if I'm passing a string to it? It'll throw an error. So this is not what we expect, or we get incorrect results, not the expected results. So I want to make sure this is always an integer. So even in the past, the Python syntax allows you to specify what is the type you expect. But you can specify only one type. You can say this can be integer. That's it. You cannot mention anything else. And you might be wondering, okay, then what do we do with this? You can't do anything. Even if you pass a string, it won't compile. But there is a nice library called MyPy. This MyPy is all about optional static type checker for Python. This is what it is doing. This can be used to see whether what you want is really happening. So let's go and test it. So this is what I'm trying to do. Okay. And this is the one. Okay. I'll put it in a separate file. Let's create a new one. So there you are. And then you say print cube of 10 is fine. And then if you say print cube of A, what happens? Now go ahead and run. It is going to give you something like this. Now this cannot be done, but this is done. So we are already getting the output. But this is where we are failing when we pass A. But I don't want to do things like this. I want to know that this is where we are making a mistake. So before you run the program, you want to detect it. Yes, we can do that. For that, you need to first install this software called MyPy. And this is how we can check whether your Python program is doing what you want it to do, whether you are passing the parameters and other things correctly. So here is my Python 3.10 folder, and I already installed this software called MyPy. If you see pip list, you can find MyPy already installed. Okay, if you want to install it, just simply say pip install MyPy. It's a very interesting library. So install this and keep using it to make your programs more robust. How do you make them more robust? Here, I want to know whether in this program everything is going according to plan. The plan is to pass integer, but instead of passing integer, I'm passing a string. It should be detected and should be eliminated. How do we do that? Let's go to this, and I'm in the folder where all these programs are present, and I say mypy because this is the tool I can use, and then I'm saying static typing dot py, and when you give this program to this, it is going to check whether everything goes according to plan. And if it is not, it will show you where the problem is. There you are. So it is saying argument 1 to cube has incompatible type str expected integer. So before you run the program, you can know where the problem is. It is saying in line number 6, we have the problem. So mypy is what we have to use to test whether everything is in the way we expect. So this is a very interesting tool. And now they have made this a little better. They didn't change the tool. The tool is not under the purview of Python. The tool is a separate library. MyPy is a separate library. It's an open source project. You can get its code on GitHub. But what they have done is they are giving you more options. What are they? They're saying it is possible for you to specify that this can be either integer or float. The union is now the new feature. It's called union type. So you can give this v, okay, you can give this v as either integer or float. Both of them are fine, but anything other than that is considered to be an error. And also this indicates what you want to return. And it is saying you can return a float. Well, it's okay to have an integer where a float is needed, but it is not okay to have a string. So this is where you can specify what are the data types you want to have for this parameter using pipe symbol. This is one of the new features, and this is called as a union operator. And this union operator is associated with data types like this. So if you go there and test this, what is our program here? This is our program, union type. So let's go. And if I say mypy union type, then it is telling you argument 1 to square has incompatible type, expected union of integer and float. So it understands this. Well, remember, even before 3.10, certain things like this were done using some third-party libraries. But now bringing these features into the language, they're making it more compact. So it is easy to read and understand what exactly it means. Okay, so that's about the union, and this can be used in various other places. I want to know whether this variable v is of type integer or float. So is instance, is subclass. Both these ready-made functions are now supporting union operator. So in the past, I could give only one data type. Now I can use this union operator and give multiple data types. So I want to know whether it is an integer or float. Like this, you can give multiple data types with union operator. So those are the two new possibilities. Okay, what else can we do? When it comes to the other feature, parameterized context manager. Well, by any chance, if you're not familiar with the context manager, this is where whatever resources you create, those resources are to be released at the end of this context. That's context manager. So previously we could do that. So here previously we had the context like this. We say with, and you say open a file a.txt as f. This is what you could do. And then whatever you do, that's fine. At the end of this context, this resource is closed. Because closing resources is always an important thing. Sometimes people don't close resources, but this is what you need to do. So this is where you are closing the resource automatically. What's the big deal now? Previously, when I had to create multiple resources, then I had to deal with that with same line. You can have something like this, b.txt as f2. Like this, you can put them in the same line. But now, starting from 3.10, they are saying, okay, now we allow you to break them into multiple lines. So this is new. You can do this. Now you might be wondering, then why are we getting all these errors? Don't worry, the errors are displayed, but it still runs. Sometimes it might be your PyCharm issue. Your PyCharm is not able to recognize this new syntax as of now. And in that case, you continue to get these errors, but still it works. And by the way, this is the project which is associated with, if you go to the project properties, the settings, and if you go to the interpreter, it is using Python 3.10 interpreter. And if it has to recognize 3.10 interpreter, first you have to upgrade this. As I told you, I have installed the latest version. And if you go to about 2021.2.3, that's the one, and built October 19th, 2021. So you need to have ultra latest versions when you want to try these new features. In spite of it, it is still complaining, but not really an error. It's just a simple complaint, but you don't need to take it seriously. I know these red lines can be very annoying, but that's what you have to bear with, because for now, it is not supporting this syntax. So this was the old syntax, and this is where you can break that into multiple lines like this, and you can make things more readable by doing this. It's not anything very fancy, not like your structural pattern, but still it is interesting, useful, and it's the same. So you can do that. So this is where they mentioned parameterized context manager. Actually, a version of this was available even in the past. If you used it in the past and if you did not get any error, don't be surprised, because 3.9 also supported it, but now it is made official. Anything that is official is supposed to be implemented by all variants of Python interpreters. So that is what it is. Okay, so structural patterns, parameterized context managers, and more easy to understand error messages. And then we are talking about union type. This is the union type. Now, the next feature is zip. We have been using zip for quite some time, but there is something new about zip. What is that? Here. Now, in the past, if you create two collections, one with the 3, one with the 4, and then if you are just trying to use a zip, then what happens? This is going to pick up only the elements that are in the shortest of all these collections. So out of these two collections, in one we have 3, another one we have 4, but we are going to take only 3 elements because that's the shortest of these two. Sometimes this can cause problems. You don't want this. You don't want these collections to be of different sizes. You want collections to be of the same size. So when you want the collections to be of the same size, you can check that manually. But now JIP is saying, well, if you ask me to check whether they are of the same size, I can do it. And when they are not of the same size, I don't proceed. So right now it is working. But if you go and add that new parameter called strict, so we got a new parameter called strict. You see, optional length checking to JIP. So here, if you go there, this is the one. There is a parameter called strict. And when we use that parameter called strict true, it means you want JIP to check whether these two are of the same size. And if they are of the same size, it will proceed. If not, it will throw an error and stop. So you didn't have this in the past. This is a new feature. So the new feature is to ensure you don't take two collections of different sizes and take only a few from the collections. Instead, it says only when both the collections are exactly of the same size, it will proceed. Well, you still have the old version. It is just a new optional parameter. So you can go to JIP and see what it is. And here is your JIP. And it is saying this is what it is providing. And then there is an optional parameter called strict. So you can give as many as you want, but at the end there is optional parameter called strict. Because this does cause some very tricky logical errors. You expect 4 to come, but you get only 3. That can cause some problems. So that's the reason they're throwing an error if the sizes are not same. So this is about JIP, union operator, where you can give this pipe symbol to specify 2 or more data types in the context, and parameterized context manager. Nothing great, just a small syntax change, but this can make the programs more readable. And then structural pattern matching is the biggest takeaway from this new version. So you can start writing expressions like this, and even the small match with the literals is a big addition to the language. Because right from the beginning, many have asked me, how do we deal with something like a case or switch in Python? Now you got the answer. This is the way you do it. I hope you like this. This is the new feature. And it might not be allowing you to do many other things, but what it allows you to do is a lot. And who knows what else they change in the coming days, because this is what they have changed for now. And then later you will be getting a lot more. So this is about it. So Python 3.10 is providing you better error messages, structural pattern matching with various possibilities there, like simple literals, data types, and you have dictionary matching, multiple literals, multiple expressions, all. Then parameterized context manager, union operator, and JIP. In fact, there are a few other things which might be a little heavy for some of you, like type alias. It is possible to have type alias like this. So you can say you want to have something like this. You can create an alias. Names is an alias for list of strings. You may not be aware of these features, but they are there. You might not use them that regularly. This is their old way of doing this, old way of creating an alias. The problem with this is it might be misunderstood it might be considered as some assignment, not like an alias. So what they want to do is they want to introduce type alias. And this is not a keyword. It is coming from typing module. Typing module is an interesting module. From that, they are providing type alias. And now I say user names is a list of strings and it is a type alias. And this makes it more explicit, and anyone who reads it would understand, okay, this is an alias for this. So they just made some tweaks, some minor modifications like this. But as I told you, to try them, you need to first install 3.10. No big deal. Upgrade your PyCharm, and then this is where you need to upgrade. Okay, so that is what it is, and hope you understood what's new and try to apply that whenever you write programs in Python 3.10. And then keep exploring and go to this is their official documentation, and there you get more details. But generally documentation is not meant for beginners or intermediate users. It's too complex to understand at times, but give your best shot. This is about it. There are some minor features which you need not worry so much, but try to understand the major features first. So that's about it. Keep learning.